Hello, my dear friends, and welcome to the tutorial. Good communication, they say, is an art which can be perfected only by those who practice it. Communication is not only about sharing information or sending across the messages. It is a much more complex process than we can ever presume it to be. Effective communication is not only hearing what is being said, but also hearing what is not being said. Just a pat on the back, a pat on the shoulder, holding of hands, it can convey much more than 1,000 words can ever do. So, the topic for today's tutorial is Truth Behind Words, Decoding the Nonverbal Communication. As mentors, as teachers, as parents, we have always told our wards that success consists of these three pillars: attitude, behavior, and communication. Our attitude, in fact, is what sets the tone for altitude in life. The right kind of attitude can make us scale the mountains. It can make us surmount even the most difficult moments. But the wrong attitude can mar our personal and professional growth. The same goes for behavior. The right cordial behavior, convictions which are reflected in our behavior, they can take us places, whereas arrogant, nonchalant behavior can make our lives miserable. And the third pillar is communication. Communicate or perish. That is how the mantra goes. In fact, communication helps build a network which finally proves to be our net worth in life. Therefore, right communication with the right kind of cues is very, very important. The structure for my presentation is divided into three parts. The first part is why nonverbal communication, and the second is features or types or elements of nonverbal communication. And the third, which is very important for students who might be in their career year, who might have to appear for the personal interviews and group discussions. So these will be the tips for improving nonverbal communication. Why nonverbal communication? That is the first segment of our presentation. In fact, Albert Mehrabian was an American psycholinguist who underscored the need for understanding the nonverbal communication. As an engineer, he did his MSc Engineering and Natural Sciences from MIT, and later on tried to delve deeper into the subtle nuances of the psychological intricacies and studied language as well. So during his research, he realized that most of our communication is done through nonverbal cues. It's only 7% of our message which is conveyed through words. Isn't it amazing that we lay a lot of importance on words, and it's only 7% of our message which is conveyed through our words? The rest, 38%, goes through the voice, tone modulation, accent, pitch, speed, and yes, pauses. And 55% is conveyed through body language. So it's very interesting area of study as to how nonverbal communication is so very integral. It is such a beautiful tool for understanding human modes of communication. Martin Luther, who was the 16th century religious reformer who initiated the Reformation movement also, he said, don't watch a person's mouth, but his face. So our nonverbal communication is much more important because it is an unconscious expression. It is done involuntarily, and it is meant to express our feelings and emotions, whereas verbal communication is meant to express our thoughts and ideas. So we involuntarily give ourselves away through our nonverbal cues. The importance of nonverbal communication goes very deep in life. It is a quick feedback, quick way of communication because the emphasis is on how and not on what. What will be taken care of by words, but how will be communicated by non-verbal cues. It is much more truthful because it is rooted in the deep layers, the inner caverns of our mind, rather than in our words. It is a silent way of communicating, giving our feedback, particularly when the words tend to be very indelicate or a situation would become unsavory if we use some words. So it is our non-verbal cue which will reflect our interest, disinterest, or our friendliness. The effects of nonverbal communication in teamwork are huge. During these days of IPL, you have all seen how the players, before the match begins, they get into a group hug, they huddle together, and then set out into the field to do their best, play as a gallant team, and come back victorious. So, as a team leader, whether in sports or in an organization, it is very important as a team leader to have a very articulate non-verbal communication also. It is important to create the first impressions. Then, as a team leader, if our non-verbal communication is strong, if it is very positive, then it can lead to a lot of motivation among the team members. Therefore, the team will display much more camaraderie. It will be much more frank and open and work better with positive vibes. It is also a very good tool for decision making. As a team leader, one can always read the nonverbal cues coming from the team, and one can always know whether the ideas are being received well or perhaps there is some ground for disagreements. Then, as a good leader, it is important to develop a strong nonverbal communication skill. It would make one a good leader if sometimes encouraging a team member by thumbs up, or maybe just holding hand, or just a pat on the shoulder. I'm sure it can lead to much more open communication within the team. Now we come to the types or features of nonverbal communication. The first in this line is kinesics. Kinesics, as the very word suggests, it pertains to the movement, related to movements, and the body. Body, in fact, has its own language, just as words they make into countless sentences. Similarly, our body movements, which includes facial expressions, posture, and gestures, it can actually create its own language and therefore convey its message very, very clearly. When we talk about facial expressions, in fact, there are countless facial expressions. There can be a smirk, there can be a frown, there can be a smile. And when we talk about smile, who better than Mr. Bean or perhaps Charlie Chaplin as well? So these are the people who made others smile. So smile has in fact been called one curved line which puts everything straight. And the age old saying that you are not completely dressed till you wear a smile. So apart from various other facial expressions which can communicate a lot of emotions, a lot of feelings, smile remains, of course, one of the most infectious among the facial expressions. And a smile can actually set things right. It can build good interpersonal communication. It can break the ice very, very effectively, and it can broaden one's networking as well. So these are the few glimpses of the high power body language and the low power body language. This is particularly true in the interpersonal communication, mostly among the peer group. But in an organization, high power body language is supposed to be a little more formal and not so nonchalant, not so arrogant, not so relaxed, but high power body language in interpersonal relationships can always give us the cues whether a person is confident, whether a person is sheepish, whether he's arrogant or too self assured, impudent, or too I don't care a damn. attitude he displays. So, posture can say a lot about our attitude towards our listeners also. Therefore, in an organization, as a team leader or as a team member, it is important to have the right kind of posture in order to build healthy, cordial relationships. The gestures, as we can see, the gestures can speak a lot, much more than the words can say. And just one thumbs up can actually show the audience how the speaker is very intimately engaged with them. So the gestures can actually speak louder than the words. Next, we have oculesics, which pertains to the eye movements. Our eyes hold the mirror to our soul, and therefore, through our eyes, we can always communicate to our speaker whether we agree with him or we do not agree with him, whether we are interested or we are thinking of something else. We can have a wandering eye, a shifty glance, a shifty look, and the speaker would know that we are interested in something other than what he is saying. And the same thing, a stony glance, a stony look can always show a displeasure or a disagreement with the speaker. And as a team leader, it is important for the leader to understand the eye movements of the glances of his team, because that will again help him make a quick decision whether the team members agree with his ideas or they have some points for disagreement. Then eye contact in public speaking is again very, very important, because that gives us the instant feedback. And a good eye contact, when we the best kind of communication, they say, is the eyeball communicating with the eyeball. So when we are looking into our audience eyes, they tend to have more faith in what we are saying. Our words will have more credibility, and there would be a better connect between the presenter and the audience. And it would ensure a better engagement of the audience also. The next is haptics, which is very, very important, because the first uh, communication of a child with this world takes place through touch. So it is related to touch. And haptics is important because in our personal, intimate relationships, touch can actually strengthen and rejuvenate the relationships. But at an organizational level, in the professional world also, as I said at the very beginning, that sometimes the team leader can just give a pat to the team member, just hold his hand in order to reassure him that things are going fine. So this is very, very important way of communicating with our body. So professional behavior will have its own limits, and you can see the two leaders of the largest democracies of the world huddling together in order to build a stronger political bond. The next in this line is proxemics, which is about nearness. How near is the speaker? How close is the speaker to the audience? That is determined by what kind of communication is taking place between the two. When it is an intimate space is supposed to be up to 18 inches. So this is used for very close friends, used by people in the immediate relationships. And then there is personal distance, which is between the friends, casual conversations. So 18 inches to 4 feet is usually the space which is considered all right. Then the social distances, which stretches from 4 feet to 12 feet, depending on the kind of uh, relationship that we share with our audience. So a boss would like to keep some kind of distance with his team sometimes, particularly in formal meetings. Then the public distance used in rallies, for example, in presentations, it is supposed to be around 12 feet also. It can go up to 12 feet. So space is actually very, very important indicator of what kind of relationship exists between the speaker and the audience. sometimes, by stretching out our hands, as in this picture, we can always claim more space. We can claim more space in order to engage our audience in our conversation. So we can claim the space. Sometimes the speaker would like to keep his arms folded, so which would mean as if the communication is inhibited. It is not communication which is open. So when one is stretching out one's hands in between, when one is gesticulating to the audience in the right positive spirit, that is one way of involving the audience in our conversation. And it's not only the body which has a language of its own. There are certain paralinguistic features which we must be mindful of in order to foster healthy communication. Paralinguistic features relate to the aspects of voice, voice modulation. A static tone of voice may not be considered well in any kind of communication, whether it is in personal interviews or in group discussions or maybe in presentations or perhaps as a team. uh, Static tone will display indifference. Then pitch of the voice is again very, very important. And speed at which the speaker is speaking. Sometimes the speakers tend to speak very fast, and that could be because of nervousness also. The volume sometimes is very high, which again can be because of nervousness or sometimes because a person feels too particular about his authorial voice that he would raise the volume to an extent where he dominates the ambience. And therefore, this will also determine whether a person is speaking at a very low volume, would again show his lack of confidence, and very high volume again will not go well with the audience. So it has to be a measured tone, measured volume, and the speed should be comfortably suited in order to make one's message clear. Then, of course, the pauses. So, as I said at the beginning, silence sometimes is more eloquent than the words. So, sometimes the pause that we take, a long pause, it the time taken speaks for itself. It gives us an answer. It gives us an instant feedback. When a person does not respond for some time and takes a pause, that is a very good way of showing one's kind of dissent or a very, very measured response. It's not a spontaneous response, it is a very measured response, very guarded. So, these paralinguistic features we must practice in order to reinforce our communication skills. So this is about how one word, if we accent it well, it will definitely give the right kind of message. And if we don't accent it well, then definitely the message will be lost. It will be diluted. So we must know which words we are stressing on. We must know the tone that we are using. For example, those of us who are teaching in educational institutions, we tend to use a high rise tone when we are reciprocating the greetings of our students. When my students say, "Good morning, ma'am," I tend to say in a rising tone, "Good morning." So that is one way of showing your interest, showing your enthusiasm to the students, to people that you meet. In all interpersonal relationships, in fact, tone is going to be very, very important. Then the first impressions with body language, as we all know, the first impressions are meant to be the lasting impressions. So make your first impression right with your body language. So how do we make that? With our upright posture. When we are convinced of what we are, when we are self-assured, when we are comfortable with our own self, then our posture will invariably be straight. It will not be a slouching posture. Similarly, the eye contact, our evasive eyes, not meeting the eyes of our interviewer, that will definitely make the interviewer doubt our intentions or maybe our sense of commitment. Then nodding in between definitely strengthens the bond between the speaker and the audience. The speaker also knows that his ideas are being listened to, they are being paid attention to. Then one should be very comfortable in one's own zone. Sitting on the edge of the chair, for example, during an interview, clearly shows that the candidate is not at is ill at ease with himself, with his own body, with his own space. For example, not knowing where to keep one's hands during an interview, it can be a terrible giveaway of our lack of confidence. Then active listening, which we can always show with our eye movements, which we can always show with our nodding. So that is again very, very important. But more important than all these things is understanding the cultural nuances. When we are interacting with people who are from a different culture, we must try to understand what kind of body language is acceptable, how much distance between two people is required, what kind of touch would be all right, what kind of body movements, what kind of gestures will be acceptable in a different culture. So that is very, very important, in fact. So these are the negative signals which sometimes, unconsciously we tend to do, and we may not be conscious of it, but then the results may not have been very positive after the interview. So if we enter the interview room slouching, our bearing shows that we are not comfortable with ourselves. If we don't have a self image, good high self image, then the interviewer is not really interested in us, because we may not be able to deliver, we because we show lack of commitment, lack of our confidence. Then evasive glances will also give us away, and fidgeting in the chair will not be taken right. Touching face and hair, as it happens many times involuntarily, we tend to touch our face when we are going through some confusing thought. So during interpersonal relationships, it may be seen as a negative signal. And similarly, frown or smirk or a sarcastic smile, all these are supposed to be very, very negative signals. And we have to master the art of nonverbal communication in order to reinforce our verbal communication. So it is very important to be confident, as I said. And this link you must visit. It's a beautiful presentation, around 2 minutes or so, uploaded by Forbes. And Forbes presentation shows how people can be confident even when they are not. So when you are not confident and you train yourself to be confident, you uh, enter into the role playing or make believe situation and try to act as if you are confident, and that after a point of time will become your second nature. So how confidence will be infectious, it will reach out to people that you come into contact with. So it's a beautiful video, and I would advise you strongly to watch it. Then these are the tips for reading body language. Who should be reading body language? Each one of us, and more so when we are in the position of authority, when we are in position of a team leader. So it is important to read the body language not in isolation. Mind you, no gesture, no posture, no smile, nothing is to be read in isolation. The entire body language, the entire cluster of cues must be kept in mind in order to interpret the right signal, right message. Then one should pay attention to the inconsistencies, because non-verbal communication is meant to strengthen our verbal communication. Is it complementing the verbal communication, or is it out of sync with the verbal communication? So once we know the inconsistencies, for example, I'm trying to be very confident and I'm keeping my hands folded close to my chest, that doesn't speak well for the way body language is supposed to be understood. So we should pay attention to inconsistencies and then reach some conclusion about a person's body language. And because nonverbal communication is involuntary, it is unconsciously done, therefore, the role of intuition is very important. So try to read uh, between the lines, as they say, try to read what does not meet the eye. And my favorite quote, good communication is just as stimulating as black coffee and just as hard to sleep after. So, because this is just a glimpse of how body language, nonverbal communication is so very important for all of us, I just thought that you must have a bucket list of must reads so that you can delve deeper into the art of communication and master the various tools which can strengthen and reinforce and rejuvenate your interpersonal relationships. So these books you must read because they come from the experts in the world who have made a list of all that one is supposed to do in order to be successful. As we began with our first slide, three pillars of success. So this will definitely help you achieve success because these books, the power of your subconscious mind, trying to talk about all your how one should make a mental movie of what one is going to do. So that is very very important when it comes to preparing oneself for the interviews, particularly for the students who are now in their career year and who have to appear for the personal interviews. And seven habits of highly effective people you must read. All these books, I feel that they are very very inspiring, and you will definitely stand to gain if you read uh, these books. Now, if you are convinced, I'm very happy. If you are confused and you feel that some aspect of nonverbal communication needs to be elaborated upon, you can mail me at my mail ID. And in the meanwhile, I would request you all to take very good care of yourselves and happy learning and enjoy your learning. Let it be a new curve in your learning era. So, with that, I am signing off and I hope to meet you in the next tutorial. Thank you so much.